Welcome to the Dr. Lori Mars podcast, where she interviews experts in health and science, sharing their expertise so you can live your healthiest life.
This episode of the podcast is proudly sponsored by Fit Vegan Coaching, the world's leading whole food, plant-based body recomposition program for Gen X and baby boomers. Founded by Maxime, whose personal journey began after losing his ex-fiancée to breast cancer, Fit Vegan Coaching is on a mission to disease-proof the world through the transformative power of plant-based eating and fitness. This program is the Rolls-Royce of plant-based coaching, offering all-inclusive services, personalized plans, world-class accountability, lifelong support, and more. Say goodbye to the yo-yo dieting and embrace a lasting transformation that will rev up your metabolism even post-transformation. Ready to take charge of your health and vitality? Head over to fitvegan.ca, that's fitvegan.ca, and mention Dr. Lori for exclusive bonus savings when you sign up. Don't miss this opportunity to join the movement towards a healthier, fitter, and more vibrant you. This episode of the podcast is proudly sponsored by The Healing Kitchen, your path to vibrant health. Immerse yourself in the transformative program, guided by the combined expertise of myself, Dr. Lori Marbus, and Chef Brittany Giroudi, who has lost 70 pounds on a whole food plant-based diet. Here's what's in store for you. Virtual weekly sessions. Engage in an immersive 60-minute virtual session every single week, where you'll delve into the world of wholesome plant-based goodness right from your own kitchen. Cooking with Brittany the first half hour. Unleash your inner chef as you're captivated by Chef Brittany Giroudi's culinary mastery that will delight your taste buds and nourish your body. Medical Q&A with Dr. Lori the last half hour. Prioritize your well-being during the second half hour. I will personally address your medical inquiries, providing evidence-based insights and personalized advice, empowering you to make informed choices for your health. So join us on the Healing Kitchen to help you step into a healthier and most vibrant future. Welcome to the podcast. I'm Dr. Lori Marbus, and today we have a special treat for you because I think she's probably doing something that we all want to be able to do as we get wiser in our years. So welcome, Ruth Morley. How are you today?
I am very happy to be here. I'm doing great. Thank you.
Well, I think there's a lot of fun that's going to be here, but before we start talking about your adventures as a 71-year-old glowing human being, can we speak a little bit about your kind of the history of why you even started a plant-based diet to begin with?
Okay. I wasn't very active in my 20s, but then I started running bit by bit and just added mile after mile and became a marathoner. Then the pavement started to take its toll, and I fell in love with backpacking because we had the fortune to live in France for 6 years, right by the Alps. So I did small day hikes, and then of course, for me, if something's worth doing, it's worth overdoing. I have to admit, I get pretty enthusiastic. So I ended up doing a 1,500-mile trail from the North Sea in Holland through 5 countries down to the Mediterranean in France. All the bottom third was all the Alps. And I was hooked. So at that time, I was eating a regular diet, heavy on cheese, living in France, etc. I had high cholesterol, just thought, well, that's the way it is. So moved back to the US, and I resisted as long as I could the Appalachian Trail because I thought that would be kind of boring after the Alps. It wasn't as dramatic, but it was stunning still in its own way. And the people are what make these long distance hikes so important, really. The scenery is nice, but the people, the other hikers and the local people. And it was, I actually had turned to paleo eating by that time. I had tried to become a vegan. I was not a junk food vegan, but I didn't understand really fully how to do it healthfully and didn't see any differences. So I went to paleo thinking, basing it on one book and one website that, oh, this is the way, heavy on the meat. And cholesterol, of course, went to near 300. But I started dehydrating my food for the trail, thinking this is how I'll eat my healthy paleo diet. Well, I ended up 200 miles from the end of the 2,200-mile Appalachian Trail over the course of 3 summers. I had stress fractures in my pelvis. I do have osteopenia, and I had just gone too many days without a break, and I got a break, 2 breaks. So I went home with 220 miles left to do and depressed on the sofa, looking for magic cures, how to make bones heal. They just weren't healing fast enough. And I'm going through Netflix and I see The Game Changers. Well, you know what happened next. I mean, by the time I was done with it, I thought, wow, I've got to do that someday. And I thought, well, why not now? What else are you doing? You're sitting on the sofa. And so it matched up with me. And in delving more into it, that was January 6th of 2020. I found this man. I went to Jane's Conference for Women on Cancer, the last one she had in person up in Cleveland in March of 2020, bought this book, bought this cookbook, and it was a go. And yes, Dr. Esselstyn's plan, some say is the most restrictive, but I'll repeat him. Some would also, or extreme, some would say cutting open your heart, your chest, and then taking a vein from your leg and putting it in your heart is also extreme. It matches my personality, and it just within a week or two, I could feel a difference. I went off antidepressants with my doctor's help. I just had energy. I went off the crutches. I was healed, but up here I wasn't. And and my husband joined me in it since it's COVID. He ate what I cooked, and both our aches and pains disappeared in our hips and our backs when we get up in the morning. Unbelievable. I think, God, broccoli can do this. I mean, really unbelievable. And it continues. I used to wear glasses. My eyesight improved. I've heard of that happening to others. My prediabetes is gone. My cholesterol went down, not as low as I'd like, but I do have a high level of, is it LP little a? Whatever, yeah, that shows it's genetic, but I'm treating it with food. I told you earlier, I can talk. I tried statins with it. My doctor, who's plant-based and trained under Esselstyn, Dr. Amy Meckley. I respect her a great deal. She sent me to a cholesterol specialist, but that person's funded by statins, and they didn't sit right with me. So I'm going with food and lifestyle.
Excellent. Well, okay, so now you're 71. So you started the diet when you were 67?
Yeah, sounds right.
Okay. And so you had mentioned in the email to me that you've hiked all the continents. So tell us a little bit about your hiking since switching to plant-based. What have you noticed a difference in anything at all?
All right. I have run marathons or hiked on all the continents. I've run marathons on 5 of them, but all of those were omnivore. I have, in the past 4 years, I've finished the Appalachian Trail. I've finished the 500-mile Colorado Trail, which was magnificent, all in the Rockies. I'm in my second half of the Florida Trail, also eating plant-based there, and my second half of the Ohio's Buckeye Trail. What I find is, compared to before, I'm tired at the end of the day, but I can set up my tent. There's no issues. Sometimes I do some yoga stretching. Next morning, it's like nothing happened, and I just get up and go. But I am aware of my limitations. I think it's really important to never compare yourself to other people. I'm almost always the eldest on the trail among people I meet, and I'm proud of it. I don't care. Many people would like to live to this age. And I don't compare myself to my earlier self, because I know that when I was hiking that trail called GR5 in Europe, I did more miles per day. I was also 20 years younger. And so now is now, and this is what I do. And I just really respect my body. So yes, I have energy in the morning, but I pace myself. I learned that doing marathons. this is a marathon, just whether it's one day or 2 months. I want to see it to the end, so I conserve my energy and use it wisely.
So how many miles are you typically going nowadays?
Um, Florida Trail is really something. That's been my most recent. Sometimes you're walking in swamps in knee-deep water, which is a
Mm,
lot of fun. I have to tell you that, especially if you're with other people. You can laugh about it. On those kind of days, I'll do 7 or 8 miles if it's
okay.
really slow going. In the Rockies, where I had altitude and I had steep inclines, I could go up to 20. So I would say I average 15 is a real nice day for me, 15
15,
miles.
15
Mhm.
miles. That's amazing. And so what were you doing that allowed you to live in France? Or just curious.
Okay, sure. Um, my husband was with Procter and Gamble before,
Oh,
and we lived 10 years in Japan and 2 years in Venezuela. And then he followed his boss when he moved to Bayer Pharmaceutical, and it was headquartered in Switzerland, but we lived just he worked in France
oh,
and
wow.
at Evian, where the water is bottled, and it
Oh,
was nirvana. It was just beautiful.
wow.
Yeah.
Do you miss it compared to living in the US?
Um, I cannot live with a foot in two different doors.
Hmm.
We owned our condo there. We sold it when we left. I initially wanted to keep it, but this is where family is. But I do get urges every now and then to go back. And we've been back several times to Evian. We've been back to Japan once with friends and once with our family, and actually got to go in the apartment where our kids grew up for 10 years. It was so
Wow.
rewarding. We have not been back to Crocus, and I don't expect that. But
Hmm.
Crocus was good in its own sake, but it led to
Yeah.
France following the boss. So that was 2 thumbs up.
Fantastic. So how did you discover the joy of hiking in general? Like what was
Good
the
point.
impetus to even start and then make
Yeah.
these really long trips?
That's a good question. When I was in third and fourth grade, we lived in a little town called Creed, Colorado. You
Mm,
know of it, being
I know
from
where Crete is, yes.
Yeah, Dad was the superintendent of the school there.
Oh,
You
wow.
can't say schools. It was so small, there were 3 kids in my grade. No, five. It was one of the bigger grades. There were two in the senior class, the salutatorian and the valedictorian. And but we lived across the street from the log schoolhouse and played in the hills. Really not a lot though. They were pretty steep. Creed is set in a little canyon, and once you get in those mountains, it's up. But we went camping as a family, car camping, not a whole lot. We weren't super active, but I was influenced by the mountains and have always had my heart there. And the Colorado Trail, I spent 2 nights there, was
Wow.
able to go through it. So that got me hooked on mountains. And then living by the Alps, you can't help but go on day
Mm,
hikes. And
mm,
then somebody said, you run marathons, why not hike the GR5? GR stands for Grand Randonnée, which is in
mm,
French, long, big walk. And
mm.
they've got GRs all over Europe. Um, and really running marathons and hiking in the Alps has nothing to do with each other except determination to do it. But it was just, I started with the southern 500 miles through the Alps from Lake Geneva south to the Mediterranean at Nice. And then 2 years later, I said, well, I can't stop now, of course, overdue. So I did the northern half of France as part of the GR5. And then we moved back to the US. And a few years later, I said, there's a northern third waiting. And so that was Netherlands, Belgium, and Luxembourg. And
Mm.
it was just great, from pancake flat to beautiful mountains. And then, as I said, I tried to resist the mother of all trails, the Appalachian Trail, but it pulled me in, and I'm glad I did.
Mm.
It's tough. Yeah.
So do you do these alone or does your husband go with you or do you have hiking
I
buddies?
really prefer hiking solo, and a lot of long distance hikers do.
Hmm.
And as well, and there's more and more solo women. Um, you connect with nature better. And as you might have noticed, I like to chat. And so I get engrossed in the conversations and love them. But then afterwards, I think, what did I see? Nothing. and I came for the trail. So it's what was nice this year. I had my first week hiking with two friends on the Florida Trail who I'd met last year on the Florida Trail. I'm doing that 3 Januaries in a row, last year, this year, and then next year I'll finish it. It's 1,100 miles, so about 400 miles each year. But I hiked with them, but we each had our own pace. So we'd camp together and then hike together for half an hour and then go at our own pace. Maybe meet at lunch, maybe not, but we know where we're going to meet together camping. And I did the same thing on Colorado Trail the last 4 days with some women I just met. And we were operating on fumes by then. At the very end of, I had been out for 6 weeks, 6 or 7. And so, because I just took my time and we pulled each other into the finish line. So that's the answer, solo hiking. But Bill does join me very often on the Appalachian Trail. I did it in 4 sections. The first 3, first one was 500 miles, then 600, and the last one was 900 when I had to get off with the stress fractures. But he joined me for the first 4 days or 5 of each. And then to help get me back on the trail to finish it, I'm choke up because he does a lot for me. He promised to do the 100-mile wilderness, which is very, very hard, the last 10 days, and climb Katahdin, the last mountain, which is like the final exam of the whole trail. It pulls together all the hardest aspects and you do it in 1 day. And he did it with me and I got done. And then I went home with fractures again.
Oh, bless your heart.
But I was plant-based and I knew I'd get through it. So yes, and this year I've invited him. He hasn't been tempted. I just go figure. He doesn't want to walk in swamps. I don't get it. But he might join me this year for 4 days when I say there are no swamps. It's by a beautiful river. And I hope he does, just so he can experience Florida that most tourists don't see.
Absolutely. So where do you reside here in the U.S.?
Cincinnati, Ohio.
So in Ohio. Okay, I gotcha. And then as far as the PCT on the West Coast, and have you done that yet or going to or planning?
Not. I'm leaning more towards shorter trails that give me satisfaction sooner. What I do want to do on the PCT is the Tahoe Rim Trail, which would be a couple weeks, and that would be great fun in the Sierras. I have not hiked there. I'm going for more rewards. I'll get a little more quicker, but I do love a month out. The way I'm doing the Buckeye Trail here in our state, Buckeyes are state tree, it encircles the whole state. It's the only, only state trail that there's no start and no end. You could just go around forever. You start wherever you want. And so I have done from Cincinnati up the west side of Ohio, across the north and partway down the east to Akron. And I'm self-supporting myself. It's not a well-known trail. It is blazed pretty well, marked pretty well, but it doesn't have all the support systems the others do, with trail angels, which are people who live nearby who are there to give you a lift into town if you need to get your supplies, or just give you some help. And that you seldom do I run into anyone else hiking the whole thing on there, although there are some. So I use my bike. I bought an e-bike because it could go faster than my regular bike, and I put it on a rack on the back of my truck. And so I'll say, okay, I'm going to hike for a week from here to here, but for today, I'm just going this far. And so I'll take the night before, I'll drive forward to where I'm going to finish, park my bike and lock it up, and go back and park my truck. I walk to my bike the next day. I ride back to my truck, put it on the rack, and move forward. It's a lot of back and forth, a lot of logistics, but it works. And I get the lower part, the walking, done first, so that if I did the biking first, the slow part would seem slow. And so often I'll just find the shortest, safest way to get back to the truck. I can't go on a trail, but much of the Buckeye Trail is on country roads or bike trails. So I can always find a way. So that's really fun. And then I'll camp or camp in the back of the truck.
So the truck and the bike is a unique thing just to the Buckeye Trail. Otherwise, you were camping, carrying everything you wanted in your
Everything.
bag.
Yeah, let me just show you.
Yeah, okay.
This is my
How many liters?
This is by ULA. It's called the Circuit, and it only weighs 2 pounds. They make wonderful equipment that's super lightweight, and it has these nice hip belts, 2 of them that come out the front, and I could put my phone and snacks in. Um, Initially, though, when starting, I made my own gear from a website called Ray Jardine, JARDINE.com. And Ray was one of the US's best climbers, and he became a backpacking wilderness guide and expert, and he put together kits to make your own lightweight, inexpensive gear. And I made my own backpacks for the Appalachian Trail, and I used these for the southern half of the AT. These are only 10 ounces as opposed to 2 pounds for the other. Weight is really important because every pound that you add above your body, I believe, is equal to like 5 pounds load on your knees, something to that effect. And, you know, we've got to protect those knees and back. So this one does not have a waist pouch. And so I wear a separate one that I just slip on my waist. And it makes a real difference, but it's an ultralight. It doesn't have a frame. So I found for my shoulders, it's not comfortable for super long distances. I've got a 4-day hike upcoming, and I'm going to use it then out of sentimentality. And I also made a tarp just shaped like that with little end caps from his kits, and it has a bug net tent that you have to crawl into. It's good for maintaining your flexibility, and that attaches underneath to keep the bugs away. And I use that for the whole Appalachian Trail. But for Florida Trail, I knew that I might be sitting upright. The bugs will get you at dusk and dawn. And I knew I'd be spending more time in my tent, maybe in the evenings, since it gets dark by 6 or 6:30 in January when I'm hiking. So I got a Durston X-Mid tent that has a net tent, but I can sit upright in it. But these things are so lightweight. My tarp and its net tent are just 2 pounds, and the other Durston tent is 2 pounds. You try to keep things really lightweight, but serviceable. You take only what you need, not what you want. Any books I take are on my phone. I do have a very small journal I write in, but yeah. So yeah, everything in a water filter.
Do you have a solar for keeping your phone charged?
On the Appalachian Trail, that would have been useless. They call it the green tunnel because you're under trees much of the time. I did see people using it in Colorado, definitely. I carry battery apps, just two of them at 10,000, whatever the measurement is. If I'm going to be out for 5 days or something like that. My husband, we'll get into the food in a minute, but he mails me my food every 4th or 5th day. And so I'm carrying 4 to 5 days worth of food in either, I don't have it handy, but a hard canister that's about that tall, and you unscrew the top, and the bears can't unscrew it. They don't have quarters to unscrew it with, so it's cool. And that protects my food. Or there's a very sturdy black bag called an Ursack, and I put inside it what they say is an odor-proof type of Ziploc bag made for this, and put my food in that and tie it to a tree. But with the canister, the bears can't destroy my food. With the Ursack, they could mash the heck out of it. But anyway, they wouldn't become habituated, so that's good. So that's and a water filter I carry. Yeah.
So tell us.
No, I was going to say, Ray Jardine sells kits for making sleeping quilts, which are open on the bottom, so you don't have the added weight of zippers, and you can, in hot weather, you can open it up more. But for colder climates, they're synthetic. I bought down for colder Colorado Trail.
Okay. So now for the food, what are you doing to prep?
Um, we eat totally plant-based here, whole food plant-based, no added salt, oil, or sugar. I follow Dr. Esselstyn religiously. And when I make meals like Sandra's chili, sweet potato chili, or lentil sloppy joes, or vegetable things, or things tomato based, I just make extra and I spread them out. I have two um, dehydrators, which would have been smart to have handy. One is a square Excalibur 9 tray, which is my favorite. Being square trays, I could just spread things out and I don't need to worry about the other dehydrator I have is the Nesco Garden Master, which is nice. It's round and it has trays that stack, and they say you can go up to 20. I just wonder that the heat and the fan that does the dehydrating is in the top, and I just wonder about that. I have 8 trays and that seems to be the limit, but you always have a hole in the middle of these round ones so that the air can travel through it. It's not quite as efficient. It can't, because of the hole, you can't get as much in it, but it's still very handy. I use 2 at a time. And so if I had something like my chili, I'd spread it out on a Paraflex silicone sheet that is on the flat tray. And I just do it about a 1/4 inch deep and try to make it uniform. And it takes about 10 hours at 125 degrees. With my Excalibur, the fan and the heater coming from the back and blowing to the front has pretty good circulation, but the top and bottom racks, just like in the other one, don't dry as quickly. So halfway through, I'll switch racks and turn them and stir things up. I can also do sauces like hummus and just spread it real thin, and then it dries crunchy, and I can put it, or chewy sometimes, and I can put it in a food processor and make a powder. Or you can do individual things. For lunches, I tend to just pull some corn, some peas, um, chickpeas, my favorite bean, and put them all together. And I just dehydrate those separately. And then I put in some powdered hummus, and that's a meal.
So you
You
just
can do
add water is what you're doing.
Yeah, yeah. After, I don't have my container here, but I have a plastic container like this with a screw lid from Lightsmith, Lite Smith.com. They have wonderful equipment. And I have one really pretty big because I eat jumbo portions since our food is so low in caloric density. And I'll put let's say the jar is that big, I'll put half of the meal in, which will be half or 2/3, and then I'll just fill it almost to the top, equal amount of water and then some. And it takes, for hummus, it takes 2 minutes and then it just keeps growing. You think, wow, I packed a lot this time. But for the other things, hours. So when I start hiking for the day, I'll put lunch in it. And maybe mid-morning or at breakfast time, I'll put the water in it and just put it in my pack. And at noon, it's ready to go. It's called cold soak it. Some people, what I did until the past 2 years, you would have a little canister of gas and you'd screw on your little MSR stove, open up the prongs, set your pot on it, and bring it to a boil with the water for 1 minute, and then put the lid on it and maybe wrap it in a koozie, however you pronounce it, in something insulated, and let it sit for 10 and 15 minutes. And then that would rehydrate it. But I don't like carrying the extra gas or the extra stove. And afterwards, clean up, you put the water in, you stir it. It's an annoying sound with your metal spoon, you drink it, but it's still not really clean. With the jar, I can put the water in after I'm done eating, shake it, drink it, clean. It's not as messy. I don't mind lukewarm. The only time I missed warm oatmeal was on the Colorado Trail, but you get over it. It's worth it. And that's how I do it. And then he sends it to me. I'll give Bill a detailed itinerary. I am a big planner, and I have made every one of my 0 days, meaning 0 days hiked. That's a rest day. I tell him, send me 4 days worth of food to Breckenridge and 3 days worth of food to Leadville, all these names.
Mm-hmm.
And they've always come, always. And he always gets them in time. Sometimes UPS, FedEx, sometimes priority mail. And we send them to the hostel I'm staying in or the hotel or general delivery post office.
Okay, that's
It
awesome.
works. It works.
Yeah. And so I think so we got the food. What about safety? Because being a woman on the trail alone, I mean, how do you plan
No.
for that, or what are you thinking?
I do feel extremely safe. I don't feel any other hiker's going to hurt me. It's a real community, but there are bizarre people out there who will get on the trail with that intent. So I have finally come to the conclusion I carry pepper spray, and I've got a little canister. It hangs. Um, it's right in my pocket. It hangs from a chain in my pants pocket, and if I see a situation, it unclips real quickly, and I've practiced with it, and I'm ready to use it. And I have sharp, pointy sticks, but often they're holding up my tent. My tent doesn't have poles. Hold it. Don't try to attack me. Let me just get this tent down. But I've got and really, it's for the dogs. If you go by some areas, there's loose dogs. And boy, I tell you, we stopped traffic. One was out to get me, just threatening me. And it was a busy 2-lane road I was walking on, and he was coming for me. And a car pulled up and stopped the traffic on this busy road between the dog and me. And as the dog would go forward, the car would go forward. As the dog would go back, he'd go back to protect me. And finally, the owner came out. That tells you why people are so important on the trail. Just so kind of him. So good. He saw what was happening and took measures.
Wow. Okay. So okay, that's domesticated dog. What about wild animals?
For the Appalachian Trail, everybody warned me about bears. For the Florida Trail, they warned me about alligators and snakes. Nobody's thought of anything for Buckeye Trail yet. I'm thinking it's tractors. A tractor could run you down. I don't know. I saw 17 bears on the Appalachian Trail. I feel privileged to have seen them, but mostly it was their bottoms. I was hiking alone. They'd come down out of the trees and run away from me. There was one encounter at a shelter where they had gotten their taste of food. The bear had, and he came every day at breakfast and at dinner. And finally, enough was enough. When I was there, we were throwing rocks at him. He went, tore up the privy to try to get to food. People throw their unused, unwanted food into the privy, and what it's in. So I called the person in charge of the shelter that I was staying in, the 3-sided log cabin where you can sleep on the AT. And I told them, and rangers came the next day with a box of donuts right at dinner time. They can smell up to 20 miles away, black bears.
Wow.
Unbelievable. I've checked those statistics many times. And they smelled the donuts, and it was dinner time, and they had to put him down. Because he'd been going to other shelters as well. But that's the only bad incident. I've seen one tiny black snake. Alligators, they have no interest in me. People who live there and hike in the swamps say they just scurry away. I've seen them down when I'm walking up on levees in agricultural area, and there's canals down low. I've seen them sunning themselves if it's been a cold day out on the shores of the canal, but they're not going to come up and get me.
What about cats?
I have no worries.
What about the bigger cats in Colorado?
I never saw one.
Wow.
I saw longhorn deer on the very beginning in Littleton area. A canyon name I forgot. No, I never saw. Some did. I wish I had. I saw 2 moose from the distance. I've
run into moose.
The biggest enemies on the Colorado Trail are tiny pebbles on a downhill. And that's like walking on ball bearings. Those are enemies. Yeah,
They're
you
so
can do a lot of things. Those animals aren't out for us. You
I'd rather
just
go uphill than
hard.
downhill any day.
Some people cook in their tents. That's like welcome all animals.
Oh
I
my
try to eat
heavens.
away from my tent. Mine doesn't smell as much.
Mm,
Yeah, just be smart with your food and store it away from you at night.
yeah.
Put
Wow.
it where you want an animal to come, where you might accept it to come. And
Gotcha.
so that's a good clue.
Oh, yes,
I know.
yes. There's,
Lots of
there's so,
things,
so
lots of
many
things.
things, so many things. Wow. So hiking 15 miles or so a day, you're bringing your food. How many calories per day are you typically consuming? Would you?
I don't know. They say it's 500 calories per hour of active backpacking with a full backpack. I eat nonstop. I'm going to show you what my food. Um, this is a day pack. I
Okay.
put together. If you hear background noise, that's that good husband emptying the dishwasher. This is my breakfast, which is consistent at home on the trail. I started with oatmeal. It is dry oats, and then I add 3 vegetables. I love cooked purple Stokes sweet potatoes. Those are cooked, cubed, dehydrated. Um, Small pieces of cauliflower and chopped zucchini, because why not? Cauliflower, Dr. Esselstyn wants his patients to eat cruciferous vegetables or leafy greens, as you know, or beets 6 times a day with each meal, both snacks and at bedtime. I can't achieve that on the trail, but I get close. That's why I have the cauliflower. And you add a little bit of vinegar, balsamic vinegar, um, to activate the nitrates in the greens or the cruciferous vegetables and to help the endothelium, the lining of the arteries, turn it into nitric oxide, which is the most efficient vasodilator that they know of. I also have dehydrated bananas in it and dehydrated chickpeas, which with Dr. Esselstyn, we don't eat nuts because of the high fat content. He said if you could eat just 1 ounce a day, okay, but he knows that you'd have a bag here, there, and everywhere. So with me, abstinence is the best. So I've got chickpeas in there that are my crunchy substitute. And then I have a tablespoon of flaxseed or chia seed and cinnamon and powdered vanilla. And I just add water. I don't need oat milk because I've got all that flavoring. So that's my breakfast every day. And boy, I love it. And then my lunch, I'm looking, L for lunch, nutrient-rich potatoes from one of, I believe it's from here. I love her cookbooks, this one especially. And this is cauliflower, parsnips, and potatoes that are mixed together with basically with, I think, a little plant milk, oat milk, and nutritional yeast. And that's basically it. But then I add some beans. I'm always looking for calories. I see some lentils in these, and chunks of the whole potato, parsnip, and cauliflower too. And always my my balsamic vinegar, Marconi brand from Amazon. Dinner is Sandra's chili, one of my favorites. I think that is from maybe Prevent and Reverse Cookbook. I'm not sure. But that has this in it too. I just love it. And again, the balsamic. But luckily, I love the flavor. My snacks, my main snack that I really enjoy are my cookies that are started with a very simple recipe from Chef AJ, just oats and mashed bananas and maybe a little cinnamon and vanilla. But then I thought, well, we add other things to zucchini bread, etc. These are dark because I add chopped minced beets, which are sweet in their own right. I love these so much. Beets, I'll add sometimes shredded carrots, shredded zucchini, finely chopped chickpeas. Really, they're a meal in a little circle. And so you can bake them, but what I do is I just mix them up until they're a gooey consistency and just put them on the Paraflex trays and dehydrate them until they're crispy. I had the fantastic opportunity to have lunch with Dr. Esselstyn and Anne one day. I was hiking the Buckeye Trail, and I was aware that they lived not far from it, and I had called in advance, and she invited me for lunch. So she drove 2 miles down to pick me up on the trail, took me back to their house, and we had a wonderful meal, a San Francisco bowl or something like that from one of their cookbooks. And I got out some of these cookies, and I said, "Try these." And their son-in-law Brian was there too, and so I got a picture of them trying it, and it's like all of them are grimacing. I maybe dehydrated those a little too much. And then I'm looking for, yes, my own trail mix. Since I don't eat nuts, Dr. Esselstyn prefers that we eat our fruit whole, fresh, not dried, because that is such a boost of sugar that we don't need. So I do veggies. I've got red pepper strips, mushrooms that are marinated in balsamic and cooked. The red pepper is raw. Oh boy, this adds sweetness. This is jicama, the root vegetable that I peel and slice super thin and dehydrate. And then oh yeah, red pepper strips, which also come out sweet, and sometimes zucchini cubes. And that is my trail mix. And I enjoy everything. There's a few other things I make, but those are the basics. Oh, and also, I wanted to mention, I do love my books. This by the chef, let's see, the Backpacking Chef. I'm sorry if the screen is doing weird things. It is on my end. Yeah, I've gotten so much information, and he has 2 books, but he gives you all the information on how to dehydrate and portions, how big to make your meal if you want a jumbo size or a medium size.
That is fantastic. So, there's so many things we could ask. Okay, so when we get to now that you're cooking the meal, you're dehydrating, how long does it take for you to, let's say, prep for a 5-day or 4-day trip? Like how many days in advance are you? Because that, lots of hours, it sounds like, with the dehydrating.
Yeah, it does. It takes effort. It really does. But they say those who are interested do what is convenient, and those who are committed do what it takes to get it done. And I want to hike. I don't want to stay at home and say, well, I have to use my own kitchen. So yes, it takes time, but like I said, doubling recipes, I get a whole bunch of Sandra's chili done, and then I'll double the lentils, sloppy joes we eat, and I'll get a lot of that done. And I don't take bread, but I'd throw in some corn tortillas. I have a constant inventory going in my mind. I have a deep freeze dedicated to it with these bags just stacked on top of each other. And Bill knows, 4 days worth, grab 4 of those bags, and that's it. And so there's always something there, and I always know what's coming ahead. But for planning for, like, I've been up to 7 weeks out. Well, even more on the Appalachian Trail, but I don't remember. That was back a few years ago. Yeah, I'll start months out so that it's not a final mad rush, and just feel really great satisfaction as it starts building up. And I'll have a bag of like dinners, a big bag of lunches, and I'll see how many of my snacks I have, and then I just make an assembly line and get breakfast snack, lunch, dinner, snacks, and put it in the bags. So I just have an inventory going, and there's always something there that if I decided to go for a week, I would have a week's worth. I do put them in Ziploc freezer grade. It's not as airproof as I'd like to preserve the nutrition. We've only had one meal out of all these years be kind of slimy. Bill's was, and luckily last year on the Colorado Trail, luckily he had extra food. So we took it with us. You leave no trace that you've been on the trail. We would never leave it just in the woods. An animal would eat it and look for more in that place again. So we took it and threw it out in a town when we got to it. But otherwise, I want to preserve as many nutrients, because the more you process food, the more you lose. And I'm well aware that I've already cooked the recipe, and now I'm basically cooking at a low temperature for hours. So I'm going to go the route. Somebody who was on my Facebook page, suggested Mylar bags with Ziplocs, or with a zip across the top, and throw in an oxygen absorber. And I'm going to start going that way. But I've got so many bags. I collect them while I'm hiking, say for 5 days. And then when I get my next box from Bill, in it is a manila envelope I have already addressed and put postage on. I send the bags home, and so I can reuse them. I just hate the thought of these going in somebody's backyard. The earth is our backyard. So I use them as much as I can. I'll use them maybe for 4 or 5 meals because they're only holding it. They're not getting rough treatment.
Right. Okay. So you'd also mentioned you had children. Do any of your kids hike with you ever, or do you have grandchildren as
No,
well?
my children are grown adults in their 40s. And our daughter and her 2 girls, when they were elementary school age, did join me the last mile of the in the south. On the Appalachian Trail, I started in the middle and went south, and then came back to the middle and went north. It's called a flip-flop hike. And when I was finishing the south, my first half, they joined me, which meant so much to me. But the girls camped with us when they were younger, but they've developed a fear of bugs, and that doesn't go well. So, but everybody's super supportive, and we've got a little grandson who's 3, and he loves camping. So people there. Yeah.
So let's talk about bugs. How do you deal with bugs? Because they can be quite significant in certain areas.
Yeah. In Colorado, for me, there was no issue. Some people, it is. They don't seem to be attracted to me. I don't know. Florida Trail, you need to be in your tent at dusk and dawn. They let you know, or your ankles get eaten up. I have my clothing treated, all of my clothing treated by insectshield.com. You send them money for a package, an envelope, and they send it to you, and you stuff as much as you want in that. And for that price, they will treat it with permethrin, and it lasts, they think, for the life of the garment. Otherwise, you can go to someplace like REI and spray it with permethrin at home, and that lasts about 10 launderings. I don't like the idea of having those chemicals on me, but I do it. I figure I'm doing all right in the other areas. I'm going to look aside for that.
Yeah. No.
And I have bug spray also, because they still will get you. And I'll do that, at dusk.
Yes. The worst we've ever ran into is when we were up in the Tetons in Wyoming. Oh my heavens. I mean, I've hiked a lot, and I've never seen mosquitoes as large as these animals. Like, these were like birds.
Oh my God.
Coming in. We actually had nets over our head and neck because they were so aggressive. But you could hear them coming. You're like, here comes another one. Okay, that's fantastic. So as far as any thoughts about like hiking the rim to rim and the Grand Canyon or anything like that?
I'd love to do that. Yeah, I've got a list in my mind. I'll share with you where my next one is. In a week, we're going to San Francisco, and we'll be in Tahoe with family while they ski. And daughter-in-law and little Leo and I don't ski. I used to, but I became afraid of it and said, done. And then I have the great privilege of going down to Newport Beach, California, south of LA, where my doctor has invited me to speak at a conference for lifestyle medicine. This is the second one that she has sponsored with a couple. She's a member of American Academy of Family Physicians, and she puts on a lifestyle medicine conference for those who, the initial conference for people who are thinking about becoming accredited in it, or just need hours. I don't know what you call them, credit hours.
CME.
Yeah.
Continuing medical education. So Newport's 20 minutes from where I live. What is the name of your doc? I live in Mission Viejo, California. Tell me what your doctor's name is and what's the name of the conference.
Her name is, I was going to say Lori Marbus. Amy Meckley, and she has integrated family care in Cincinnati. And this is the second year. She asked me to come and speak as a patient. I'm going to speak on the last day and just say, this looks daunting, but look how far you can carry this and what I've done. And I did it last year with her in Albuquerque. And I'm just so honored and so pleased. And looking at a map, I saw that, 75-minute boat ride away is Catalina Island.
Yeah.
So I'm going to do the Trans Catalina Trail. It's 38 miles. You're basically doing the length of the island and then back loop a little bit. And it'll be 4 days hiking, 3 days camping. I've got all my campgrounds booked. I've got a ferry booked. And what's fun is a friend has his own boat there. And I'm going to sleep 2 nights on his boat docked in the harbor, in the pier, San Pedro
And
Pier.
you're going to do that this next week?
In 2 weeks.
In 2 weeks. Wow.
In 1 week, I'll go to LA. Then a week later, no, in 1 week, I'll go to San Francisco and Tahoe. And then I'll go to LA and do the conference for 3 days. And I get to stay for the whole conference. It's interesting. Last year, one of the doctors came up to me and said, I bet you learned a lot from all the talks. I said, I learned a lot, but I have to say, I've studied this a lot. I knew more than any of them that were just there for the first time, thanks to podcasts and reading.
Sure.
But yeah, and then I'll be doing, I can't remember the exact dates, but something like the 21st of March or so. I'll be hiking for 4 days.
So it's Dr. Amy Meckley,
Amy Meckley, Mechley, or Mechly, and integrative. And it's with the American Academy of Family Physicians. And I don't remember the name of it, but it will be at a Hyatt in Newport.
Okay. Fantastic.
Yeah. And I'm going to be hearing you at the conference in Cleveland.
Oh, yes.
What
in
is it?
Ohio in June.
Yeah.
Yes, the NHA, National Health
NHA.
Association. Yes, no. Yeah, I'm family medicine as well, so I'll definitely check this out. For Dr. Meckley. So very cool. So one final question, or couple of final questions. I know I've kept you the hour here, but
I like lots of final questions.
So people are going to be thinking you're walking solo. Are you listening to podcasts? What is your mind doing these things? Are you just present and just enjoying the place? Like what goes, there's so much solitude.
I know. Yeah, on the Buckeye Trail and the Florida Trail, there's been a lot of road walks. The AT and the Colorado Trail, not at all. I tend to not listen to anything, especially in the morning. I just try to totally be there, even if it's a road walk and there's traffic sometimes whizzing by you, you're in the shoulder. I still try to be in the present moment. That's why I'm there. And if I listen to something after 5 miles, I think, what was back there? I don't know. So really, I don't bring my AirPods. I don't, none of that. Not really. I don't even bring any. If I really am bored out of my mind, day 4 of a road walk, I'll hold my phone here and just for a while, and then I get tired of it and put it away.
It conserves batteries as well.
I'd really rather not. And on my 0 days, when I've got my feet up and I have 2 nights in a town, and I usually get a hostel hotel or somewhere where I'll have a little privacy, I'll do my blog on thetrek.co. And also I have a Facebook page called Heart Healthy Hiking. And I am saying hi right now to the loyal members that have joined up. That's had a good response after a podcast like this. And that's when I catch up with things. But otherwise, no, I just, not even music. I don't know. I'm there to be there.
Yes. Well, I think that's a nice segue because you mentioned a couple of podcasts that I'd done that you really enjoyed was Dr. Ellen Langer and Dr. Shed Helmstead. Why were those important to you?
Oh my gosh. Dr. Langer has done so much research on the body-mind connection, but she says really the body, the mind is the body and the mind. They're one thing. They're connected. And based on your podcast with her, I bought that book, and I'm just devouring it.
It's a great book. The Mindful Body is what she's holding up.
Yeah. I'm highlighting, I'm taking notes. It's so good about how our mind influences our healing. More than placebos often work more than the real drugs. And I've been battling a knee that doctor said, wow, looking at the x-rays, I'm surprised you haven't asked for a new knee. And it's getting better. I don't know, you can't do everything, but mental is so important. And then Dr. Helmstead, Shad Helmstead, I had heard him before on yours, but I thought, I'm going to prep for talking with Dr. Marvis. I'm going to listen. Oh, and that's what came up. He wrote Unlocking the Power of Self-Talk, and I do have that on audiobook, I believe. And he says we learn by repetition, and by the time we're 18, we've heard almost 150,000 negative statements our way. No, that won't work. No, you're so dumb. Any of those things. And by repetition, we believe it. And he has an app that I signed up for this morning, Self-Talk Plus. And you hear positive talk, and it's background. You don't have to sit there and listen and meditate on it. He said that's how kids learn language, and their self-attitude is just hearing in the background where the parents are saying, oh, she's so clever, look, what she's doing, or he'll never amount to anything. Why does he always do that? The background is what we learn from. And so I think those are pivotal. I am going to give a talk tomorrow night at a library, at a conference center at a town near here. And that's going to be part of my focus, telling them, support yourself, say, I can do this, and here's when I will do it. Don't just, if you say, I'm trying, that means, but there's a possibility of failing. If you just say, I am doing this, like today coming up the steps, I felt a tweak in my knee, and I thought, I'm getting stronger every time I go up these stairs. It's little things. It sounds like junk, but it's real. It's so real.
Oh,
so
it's
I really
absolutely
thank you for those podcasts. They meant a lot to me, and I'll listen to them again. And I recommend everybody else. Yeah, they were great.
Well, that's fantastic. Yeah, Dr. Langer was great. I can't even remember how I found her. She's kind of the mother of mindfulness. And her and John Kabat-Zinn are kind of like the parents of mindfulness. And so yeah, it was a really fun. I'm listening to her book, The Counterclockwise.
I want to get to that.
So she said I could interview her again. So I'm saving, I need to get that book read. There's so many that I am constantly being sent.
If I could share, Counterclockwise was in which she put people in a setting in a resort for just 1 week, older men, that was set back 20 years ago.
Yes.
And they had to pretend that they were 20 years younger, and they came out with great biomarkers. All their markers, everything was
better vision, not walking with canes.
Yeah. Unbelievable. And so I tell myself I feel like I'm 50, and I do. And I intend to live to 40 more years. And so I told Dr. Meckley, she's got to, take care of herself. So she's still there. But yeah, it's the mindset.
Yes,
it's just,
it is.
It really helps. It's not a guarantee, but it helps.
Yeah, no, it'll absolutely set your days the way you want them. So
yeah.
Well, Ruth, this is amazing. Everyone will have the links to all the resources that she's mentioned, which you're going to need to send these to me. And because there was a lot here, and I'm sure there'll be a lot of questions without those resources. So thank you so much. Well, I think this is just really speaks to, there's no way to think about there's limitations with this diet. People travel internationally, they hike for days on end. It's just a matter of preparation and understanding there's going to be effort required for anything that you truly want to do at the level and that you're doing it. So
but the rewards are so great.
Yes. So what would, if there's any last final words you'd like to share with our audience, what would that be?
My target audience will say is the older, more mature women and men. Um, get out there. Don't think you have to do anything like me. I inched into it all. It sounds extreme, and it is at this point, but I started small, and some days I don't even leave my house. So my goal this year is every day just at least walk around the block and just look at the trees. Because it's not that I don't want to go out, but I just get wrapped up inside. So get outside, and do the best you can in pushing the unhealthy animal products and dairy and heavy oil, salt, and sugar, and push in the plants. It's amazing. It's amazing the difference in your life. It's anything that you might lose pales in comparison to what you gain.
That's a great sentiment to leave this
Yeah.
podcast on. So thank you so much for your time today again.
Thank you.